3 losses in a row for Boston College. Something's got to change.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor and publisher of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Check out our work there. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, Boston College has to turn the page. They've lost 3 in a row. And right now, we're looking at the potential of not making a bowl game if they don't win 2 out of their last 4 games. And the way that they've been playing, they've not been able to put together a solid game in a while. So the Eagles, we're going to look at today some reasons and things that BC needs to change in order to get those wins, and what Bill O'Brien in his first year has to make some adjustments in this bye week if he wants to see some success. And in order to do that, we got on Mitch Wolf of Eagle Insider here to talk about that. Mitch, how's it going?
It's going well. Really wish we weren't in this position, but this is how it's gone. This is what it is. It is what it is, unfortunately. But again, it's a good time to have a bye week right now. BC has a lot of things they need to fix. And like we've said, I think there are winnable games down the stretch if they make some changes and don't play like they have the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, really.
Now, the offense. The offense is what we're going to kick it off with. Let's look at the offense first. They have struggled to put up more than 20 points in a game. The as you said, we've talked about it extensively. It's just been inconsistent, consistently inconsistent for weeks now. What are some things that we should be looking at? Or not we, because we're not coaching the team. What should Bill O'Brien be considering when he's trying to figure out how to get this offense clicking?
So I think the first thing that he needs to do, and I think this is the less realistic of the options on the table, is making a change of play caller. And we've talked a lot about Will Lawing, both on this medium, in print. There's been a lot of discussion among the fan base about Will Lawing. Again, I push back a little bit about, play calling is not an exact science. You can't just call the touchdown play every time. It's not how this works. But it's clear that he just is not able to consistently do his job well. There's some good moments, there were some good moments in the Louisville game. There's some good moments against Virginia Tech. Like there's good stuff there. It's just the offense just seems to have to work so hard to get the ball moving consistently. Like there's no easy button on this offense, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll get into some of them later. But I think that exploring a change of play caller is something that should be on the table. And Will Lawing has been with Bill O'Brien since 2012 as an assistant, so it's clearly a guy that he's been grooming to be his protege to extend his coaching tree. But I think this guy just not cut out for right now. Maybe it's just too big a job. Looking at the rest of the coaching staff, I personally don't think Bill O'Brien should take over play calling himself. I think that tends to not go well for coaches in college because it takes away from a lot of other game management stuff you need to do. So I don't love that idea. And also there's been some rumors about he's kind of done it ad hoc in the middle of games. But I just don't love that idea. The next choice is probably Jonathan DiBiase, the quarterback's coach, who has a pretty good relationship with Castellanos. Maybe he would just be more dialed into what Castellanos is doing well, what the offense can do well. The other option, and I'm honestly not sure how this is allowed, but you have Rob Chudzinski and Doug Marrone on this coaching staff who have both been head coaches. Marrone at the collegiate and professional level. These guys have been around football for a long time. They have experience as play callers. Maybe you give them a shot. And Chudzinski was an offensive coordinator for BC last year when BC, also inconsistent, but in a different way, but has more experience with, some of these players. So maybe he has a better sense of play calling. And again, both these guys have been play callers before. They have more experience doing it. They are analysts, so they're not on-field coaches. So I'm not sure.
They changed the rules on that at the beginning of this year, so they can all be on the field at this point. So
right, but I'm not sure. Just are they allowed to call plays or I think there's some kind of.
Well, I think you'd have to fidget it with it probably. You're gonna if you were to demote Lawing and make him the tight ends coach, then you could have that spot because you can have as many coaches as you want and just make him the OC.
Yes, with college, it seems like you can just kind of do whatever you want these days. So maybe that is easier than I thought. But those would be the avenues I'd explore, just because that would take some pressure off of Lawing. maybe because I think there are there are some good designs in this offense. Like there are good plays. It's just the sequencing of them and the consistent execution is not there. So, shaking that up might be a good way to kind of break the logjam, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like no, this is not like a knock on Long at all, right? Like,
Well,
well, I mean, it is, but like, I don't want to be sitting here just bashing the guy.
yeah,
But there needs to be something to change here with the
yeah.
offense. Like, I don't know how you continue 4 more weeks the way things are going and expect things to change. It's like the definition of insanity, just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting things to change. I I don't know how you look at what the way this offense has been struggling, the things that they've been able to do, and keep doing and just being like, it's got to be execution. It's got to be something else. Like at this point, execution is not the issue. It's the play. I mean, it's a piece of it too, but you got other things that you got to fix here, and sometimes it's changing the scheme and what they're doing just a little bit to get things
Mhm.
jump
Yeah,
started.
because like we talked about the turnovers a ton, and that's obviously a huge issue. But that's not really like a coaching decision issue. Like that's kind of it's not random, but it's more fluky. Like it's just like you need and we talked about with Castellanos with the fumbling, and they just needed to be more disciplined about it. And this last week against Louisville, he didn't have any turnovers.
Yep.
And and again, he's been much better as a passer in terms of taking care of the ball. Obviously, threw some interceptions in a few games here and there, but like compared to last year as a thrower, he's a lot better in that department. So, there are things that have been cleaned up in that department, but and there's things like coaches just can't clean up because things just happen. But I think that there's enough evidence on the table that's like, okay, there has to be a change on the coaching staff in terms of play caller. There needs to be some adjustments there to get things moving.
And I'm just going to say to the fans out there listening, media hasn't had any access yet this week. They're on a bye, so we don't know anything. They haven't had a Zoom yet. We don't know if they're going to have a Zoom. I asked today; they're not sure. So
Is
there
Bill
could be
O'Brien, is Bill O'Brien going to pull Lincoln Riley?
right. Like, could there be a change that we don't know about? And all of a sudden, he comes back next week and it's like, oh, yeah, or we find out about it at the game. Who knows?
We've
Could some
and we have seen a lot of other teams make some changes at this point in the season. We've seen. I think we talked about UCF
West
firing both
Virginia?
coordinators. West Virginia made a change. So we're kind of getting into the final month, and some teams are making some moves to try to see if they can get a spark for the final stretch of the season. So maybe BC will follow that lead.
Yeah, and you're gonna be playing some pretty good offenses coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the piece that's scary, right? Like
Yeah.
Syracuse, UNC, SMU, and Pitt. All four of these offenses put up points,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna have to figure out a way to put up points against these teams. I have more faith that the defense could maybe slow them down, but you're also gonna have to put up points too because this defense isn't
I
good
mean,
enough.
I think we could say like the defense could get turnovers and stop points that way, but the offense needs to be able to take advantage of those turnovers and get points on the board. So
Right. So I'm going to pull an audible on you, Mitch. We're going to talk about the second part of the offense in the second segment
Okay.
because we have to talk about something else in just a moment. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, and I love Game Time. I used it to buy BC tickets last year. Took my family to it. It was easy. I got my tickets immediately, and I knew exactly where I was going to sit. And they have the Game Time Picks, which helps you get out all that clutter to find the tickets that you are looking for. You're going to filter out the fluff and get incredible deals on great seats. That's what I love about Game Time. The seat finder, you can see wherever you're at in Alumni Stadium, and it's going to show you what your tickets you're going to get. No surprises, all in prices. Also, for a lot of your tickets, get rid of all the fees. Well, it includes the fees, so you're not going to be surprised again. That's what I love about Game Time. Game Time is not a surprise. Everything is laid out right there for you. Boom, boom. Guesswork is gone. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create a code and redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. What time is it? It's game time. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here. And I also want to tell you guys about Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. He talks about everything major going on in the world of college football, whether it's, coach firing, the playoffs, bowl projections, the big news going around college football. He has it all. So follow Locked On College Football wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. So, Mitch, let's continue with the offense. The other piece that's going on is we've seen a reliance. It seems like more of a reliance at times on Kai Robichaux, and they've slipped away from Trayshawn Ward. But the guy that was missing last week, it seemed like it was a big major factor, and we don't know what's going on with him. Is Turbo Richard? What do you think? Thoughts about how they need to manage the three of them moving forward?
I think that, I think just getting Turbo Richard back is huge because he has been he gives a consistent jolt to this offense in the running game. Ward definitely has that to his game, especially in the receiving game. It happens occasionally, but it's not as consistent as it is with Richard. Like Richard has been incredible for a true freshman. His progression has been really impressive. His ability to see lanes and just his burst is really good. So that helps you turn those runs that only go for 5 and runs for 10 or more. So that they absolutely need that in this offense. And I understand maybe they were trying to slow play him early in the season, not to try to put too much on his plate. But if he can get back healthy after this bye week, I think that is huge because my big thesis on this offense is that, at least for the final stretch of the season, is that they need to lean more on this running back group than the receivers, because watching the film for most of this season, these receivers are just really struggling to get open. And BC's putting a lot of receivers out there. They're still playing a good amount of 11 personnel. You're seeing 11 personnel being first digit is the number of tight ends. The second digit is the number of, first digit is the number of running backs. Second digit is the number of tight ends. And then by process of elimination, you get to how many receivers on the field. So 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. And that's how most teams play. That's how BC has played for the plurality of their snaps. You're seeing Jaden Skeet, Lewis Bond, and usually Reed Harris. And the funny thing about that is that depending on which site you use, the one I use, Reed Harris seems to be coded as a tight end. So BC is actually first in the country in the usage of 13 personnel, which is 1 running back and 3 tight ends, which they're using at 27.2% of their snaps. Next closest team's at 13%, so they're twice as much. But that's a coding error because Reed Harris is a wide receiver, not really a tight end. I digress. Point is, they need to be using more 2 running back sets. They need to get Turbo Richard and Trayshawn Ward on the field at the same time. Not a lot of teams know how to play 2 running back sets on defense anymore because nobody uses it. Everybody uses 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 10 personnel. There's always 1 running back on the field. There's except unless you're playing an option offense, which BC can incorporate some of those concepts. You're not seeing 2 running backs on the field. And typically when people think of those sets, it's more a fullback and a running back. This would be 2 actual running backs, and you'd have Ward as more of a slot back who is a hybrid running back receiver. So I think you get those 2 guys in the field. I think they might be able to open up the offense a little more because, frankly, what you're getting from the receivers is not good or consistent enough. Like Lewis Bond is a solid player. He's just not getting a lot of opportunities. He's really up and down game to game. Not just performance, but more so usage. And I don't think it's allowing him to get in a rhythm. Reed Harris has been a bit up and down. He's mostly just like this deep threat. Jaden Skeetus has been good when targeted, and I think he should get the ball more. But again, he got hurt early in the Louisville game, and I'm not sure how. I don't think it's a long-term thing. I think he just pulled something and then couldn't return. And then obviously, we're seeing the personnel mismanagement, the rest of the wide receiver position. So I think you just stop using those players as much, get more running backs and tight ends on the field, real running backs, tight ends, use more of Kamari Morales, Jeremiah Franklin, and the other 2 running backs, and try to go in that direction because what they're trying to do with the 11 personnel is just not working at this point.
Do you see Bill O'Brien being flexible enough or to change the kind of like base personnel that you're doing there and do something like that? Or
yes and no. I think on the one hand, it's tough to change your offense that much, even when you have a bye week in the middle of the season.
Mhm.
But going back to, I'm not sure I'm going to find this in time, but when he was hired and I was looking at his offenses from the times that he was at the Houston Texans all the way through even his last year with the Patriots in 2023. He did a very good job of adjusting his offense and the offense personnel usage every year to the personnel. So there was a few years with the Texans where I think the first year they got there, they were running 12 personnel on, I think, over 50% of their snaps. Next year, they were an 11 personnel majority team. The next year, they were still, I think, plurality 11, but they were using a lot of 21. I think might have been a year with like Lamar Miller and Alfred Blue with 2 running backs. So he has shown, and every year would like change. So he has shown the ability to make those changes between seasons. Not sure if he can make that.
Oh, we lost Mitch.
Okay, so look, we had a bit of a technical difficulty, but I was able to find the numbers. So when he's with the Texans from 2014 to 2020, in 2018, they were first in the league in 12 personnel at 37.3% and 30th in 11 personnel at 47.2%. The next year, they were third in 12 and actually, sorry, in 2017, the year before that, they were 31st in 12 personnel, 11.1%, and eighth in 21 personnel at 13.6%. So, year to year, they're flipping this. And towards the end of his tenure, he definitely got more into 12 personnel. If you look at his time at Alabama in 2021, they used, it was a lot of 11 personnel still. 75% 11 21, 17% 12 in 2021. In 2022, their 11 personnel went down to 70%, and their 12 went down to 9.2%, but their 21 personnel, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, went up to 8.3%, which was 12th in the FBS. So we've seen it change from season to season. Within season, it's a bit of a tougher change to make, but I think that that's really one of the few options they have left to make this offense go without just keeping doing the same thing.
All right, let's switch this up. Let's talk about special teams because that obviously has been a major talking point. We watched a game basically. You can argue that was one of the biggest reason why they lost. They couldn't punt the ball. They couldn't do anything, and it was basically a turnover every time that they punted the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about changes to special teams. What do they need to do?
All right, so let's address the elephant in the room. They could fire Matt Thurman. I don't think they will because, and I think we might have said this on the previous show, but special teams coaches are not as involved with the actual mechanics of the kicking. They're more focused on the kick coverage, kick blocking, all that. So, and BC has been pretty good in those departments. Maybe they're not getting enough on kick and punt returns. I'll stipulate to that, but they've been pretty good job on the coverage and all that. So that's probably not going to happen. In terms of other changes, like campus-wide search for punter, you got to find somebody else. I mean, this team is, I'm pulling up the stats now. BC is 132nd in yards per punt in the FBS at 37.1. They are, let's see, they're also last in the Power 5 in that department. They are, I would imagine, somewhere pretty close to net yards per punt. They are 122nd in net yards per punt at 35.06. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're fifth worst among Power 5 teams. So you have to find somebody else. Like whoever is doing it on the team right now has not been good enough. And like you said, they've been okay in practice. Then just when the games start, they just lose their minds and can't do their job. So, and that's just, yeah, like you said, it loses games. It's equivalent to turnovers at this point. So there has to be a change made.
It's so interesting you bring up that the piece of what special teams coordinators actually do, because getting, again, with Halfley, I didn't get a chance to watch practice because it was closed, but getting to watch it, you're right. Turn was never, like, the punters and kickers they're off in their own little world, it seems like, doing their own thing, and he'd evaluate them, or Bill or he and both of them would evaluate, like, when they would do drills, like a few things here and there, but he's not, like, that was like 5 minutes, like, of them doing that. Otherwise, they're off, like the guys, the teams outside practicing, and the kickers are in Fish Fieldhouse just working things by themselves. So he never was really all that involved. But regardless, something's got to change there because you can't do what they're doing. And
yeah, I just went and found this too. So this is special teams expected points added, which is kickoffs, punts, field goals attempted, and 2-point conversions. So I'm not sure why that's included, but it is. This is from True Media, and BC is 131st in special teams expected points added per game at negative 3.44. So they're losing a field goal a game on special teams. And actually, ironically, the team that is in last is Syracuse at negative 5.75, although I bet that would have something to do with the 2 blocked punts. That one of them, I think, went for a touchdown. The other one might have been a safety against UNLV. So those might be skewing it a bit. But yeah, I mean, those are terrible numbers. I imagine they're not much better. Let me go to punting. And another thing, like, I know I've seen some people talk about this too. Like, I understand why they don't want to be super aggressive about taking kicks out of the end zone, because it typically doesn't usually set you up with good field position. So, but you have Jaden McGowan there, who was an all SEC kick returner. Maybe like try to let him go and see if you can create some positive variance there, get some explosive plays, maybe break one. And on special teams, I saw that Isaiah Ferris was back there returning punts again against Louisville. there are, we talk a lot about the coaching staff in general. I think coaching staffs know more about football than fans and media because they've been coaching football for their profession for most of their lives. There are just some baffling personnel decisions being made on this team, and punt returner is definitely one of them because I just don't get why Isaiah Ferris is back there, especially when you have a guy like Lewis Bond who's on this team who was a very good punt returner last year and really like added something to this team where you could change your starting field position by 5 to 10 yards on almost every punt because he could create some yards for you. And there were times where he broke some big ones. So I get that they want to keep Bond healthy, but we're running out of time in this season, and I think that getting Bond back there could really help unlock something. For context, going back to the punting, BC is 129th in punting EPA per game at negative 0.69. Nice. That is the second worst in the Power 5 behind Syracuse. So BC is losing almost a point every time they punt just because of how bad the field position
So
is.
they're only ahead of a team that's had 2 blocked punts.
Exactly.
And honestly, I'm surprised BC hasn't had a blocked punt yet.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of why it's like, you don't necessarily want to make that change with Thurin because if you take him out, then maybe that starts to fall apart, and then that's when things would get really dire.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, special teams obviously is a very big issue. In our final segment, Mitch and I are going to look at the defense and talk about whether there is a change that could be made, or is this what it is? We'll get into all of that in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here, and I'm the editor of Eagle Insider. Come on over. We have basketball coverage coming up. We have tons of football stuff. Check that all out. And also, check out Locked On ACC, hosted by Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono. They talk all about the ACC, and they have some great stuff going on over there. Check out Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast when you're done with this episode. All right, so Mitch, the defense. Obviously, they let Tyler Shugg throw 75% completion against on Friday. They had 1 sack. They had 3 turnovers. But is this what the defense is going to be like? Like, I mean, it's ups, it's downs. They're making some plays here and there. They're getting overwhelmed at other points. Is that kind of what we're going to be looking at for the last 4 games? And it seems like there's not much you can do with this group.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing about this defense is that I don't really know what you would change beyond because I don't think the unit has been bad enough, and they're not performing badly enough that it's like this is definitely the coach's fault. Like there's obviously losing Mari Jackson, losing Cam Arnold is huge. Like that, those are 2 veteran leaders of their defense who are at very important positions, and the drop off from them to the next player below them on the depth chart is huge. You're going from Jackson to Ashton McShane, who's a true freshman cornerback who has had nice moments, but he's a true freshman cornerback, so he's going to have some struggles. Or Bryquist Brown, who's a G5 transfer who, is probably not an ACC level starter. Going from Cam Arnold down to Owen McGowan / Sione Hala, you're losing a ton of Cam Arnold, say what you will about him, has played a ton of football. Like he's seen everything. You're losing some athleticism if McGowan's out there, losing some size if Hala's out there. So you're just, you're downgrading there. And because you have to give Davion Crouch a breather at times, you're pulling him off the field. So you're down both of your backup linebackers. So that's a problem. And this isn't necessarily something you can change, but like looking at this pass rush itself, like it's abysmal. Like it's outside of Donovan Ezra, like this team ranks, I think they're in the hundreds, even lower in pressure rate. They were 30, I think in the 30s last year in pressure rate, and they were terrible at getting sacks. But again, like I said, that was kind of just a bad luck thing, and it's regressed to mean this year. BC right now has as many sacks as they did all of last year, and they still have 4, possibly 5 games to play. Now, they have been really bad at getting sacks in October. Donovan Ezra got blanked this month, which sucks. But again, he's getting double teams, getting triple teams sometimes. This game, and so I'll say this. Last year, we talked a lot about the defense, and they were struggling because they kept just doing the same thing. They did the same thing for the entirety of Jeff Hafley's career. They played a lot of man coverage. They blitzed a lot. They got beat for explosive plays. To Tim Lewis's credit, he is trying different stuff. Like he is going out of his way. All right, let's try this week. This past week, they played a lot of base defense. They played 3-4. They blitzed a lot. Like for most of the season, BC was blitzing at like 25% of opponents' dropbacks. I'm going to pull up the numbers here. They blitzed heavily against Duquesne and Missouri, which is kind of weird because it's the 2 completely opposite teams in their schedule. Every other game besides that, 22.4% against FSU, 27% MSU. The last 3 games before this one, they blitzed on lower than 20% of the opponent's dropbacks. This week, they dialed it up to 39%. And they also played a ton of man coverage, which is something they hadn't done for most of the season. Like they played a lot of man coverage against Michigan State, which was a run heavy team. So I kind of understood it. This game, they're playing a much more pass heavy team, and they played man coverage on 43% of snaps, the highest or second highest rate behind Michigan State this season. So he's trying different stuff. And, obviously the personnel is not what they want it to be. They're putting in different players. They put in Owen Stoudemire. They're using Sam McConnell. This comes Quan Williams. They're rotating at the slot with Kari Johnson, Cameron. Like they put in Omar Thornton this week. Like they are trying different things to see what can work. So I think they just kind of have to keep changing the inputs and hopefully finally can put the puzzle piece together for a good game. And again, we saw them create turnovers. Those turnovers are kind of fluky. Like they're you look at the interception. I think it's weird how much the two interceptions against Louisville and Virginia Tech were similar. It was quarterback getting pressured, rolling out to his right, throws it. I think he's trying to throw it away, but it goes right into the arms of the defender. So you get lucky there. And with the fumble, it's a great hit, great play by Hutchins, but it's lucky that it just bounces right into his arms. So right. It's good that they're able to create these turnovers, but it's not something you can rely on to be a dominant defense, especially when you're not being successful on a down-to-down basis. Like you're letting Louisville move the ball up and down the field pretty well. And, with Virginia Tech, it was a big schematic reason just because they have to defend all these things. You have to defend the quarterback run. You have to defend the outside zone. You have to defend the RPO throw. Louisville was a bit different than that because Shuck isn't really a threat to run, but they've got a lot of different concepts. They've got different running backs. They've got good receivers you have to cover. So, I think the defense is just kind of the change. The interesting part of it is not that they should make a change or have to make a change. It's just that it's like, this is your lot. This is the hand you're dealt, and you just kind of have to play it. So,
yep,
it's unfortunate. You hope you get Cam Arnold back. Again, it was good to see them try to move Donovan Zaraku around to try to find a matchup, see if he gets some pressure. And he did lead the team in pressures. He had 4 pressures again, drew a holding penalty, which was huge. But he's only one guy, and he's a really good player, but only one guy can do only so much.
It's going into a different mode here. Like you're looking at the time of Jeff Hafley here and what he left for Bill O'Brien. And one guy that I don't think anyone talks about that really left the cupboard bare is Vince Ogabase. Like he was the one that recruited all those defensive linemen. That was his, he'd always put up those crazy GIFs of everything and how excited he was. And you look at the unit right now, and there are no answers. Like at least when you look at the safeties, you see Omar Thornton out there, and you're like, that guy.
Yeah, good game for a true freshman making his first start. Like had a few true freshman mistakes. You can live with that. He had some really nice plays otherwise.
Yep, and same thing with guys like Carter Davis and KP Price. Like there's talent coming up there.
And that was one change we did talk about was like try to find a way to get Thornton and Davis on the field at the same time with one of them playing in the slot because it's Kari Johnson was pretty solid to begin the year. He's kind of had some struggles in the last few games.
Yep.
Cam Martinez kind of regressed back to the mean in this game with some less than ideal plays. So, try Thornton, try Davis, heck, try Price. Like he's a bigger guy, but he's an athlete. He's willing to come up and tackle. So, just try something, see what works.
I think that's the theme of all this different stuff is all our 3 themes this week is try something.
Just try something. Because whatever, if you just keep doing, it's like you said, if you just keep doing the same stuff, like it's not going to just magically turn around probably. So
right.
This also goes for the offensive line at the right guard position, which we've talked about as being an issue with Jack Conley and Dwayne Alec. Put in somebody else. Put in Jack Funk. Put in.
You know what? One thing that we don't want to see changed.
The quarterback.
Yep. You knew it, Mitch. I was going to say that. We're not the one thing that we're not advocating for at this point is Grayson James.
Like I think I said this to you. I might have even said it on the show last night. Is that BC is not losing aside from the turnovers on a down-to-down basis. BC is not losing games because of Thomas Castellanos, but he's not doing enough to help them win. I do not think that Grayson James would be able to add enough to get BC over the hump to where they would be winning these games because a lot of the issues that are plaguing the offense are not solved by changing the quarterback. And some of the things that the offense does well would be removed by changing the quarterback. So that is not a primary issue on this team. There's a lot of other things that need to be fixed and can be fixed by making some changes. Let's put that one to the side.
I was going to say quarterback and maybe tight ends. Those are probably the two.
Yeah, tight ends have been good.
Kamari Morales and Jeremiah Franklin, props to them. But like any other position, you could make an argument for anything. Like wide receivers, you want to change our wide receiver, go for it. If you want to change the running backs, go for it. Like at this point, like, try some different things. So
Mhm.
that's our final message here. Mitch, where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitch T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. We're having the game rewatch pieces come out this week. We're going to try to put this discussion in a more written form, kind of spell out some things, discuss some things at more length. We're not limited to a half hour of time. And then we'll be on to Syracuse, which is I saw some people kind of making, this Louisville game, this is the season, this is the make or break game. And I didn't think it was, at any point.
Mm-hmm.
This Syracuse game might be a make or break, but this one might make or break the season.
Yeah, I think that'll be a conversation we're going to have next week is about
Yeah.
how important this Syracuse game is going to be.
Yeah.
And you know what? A win against Syracuse could be a really big thing for multiple different reasons. Obviously for the bowl, but also beating Syracuse will be big too. So we'll get into all that next week. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. We have basketball coverage up. I have recruiting news. BC is in the top 5 for a 4-star basketball player I just saw. I'll have some stuff up about that later. Got all sorts of good stuff up there. Hockey blogger should have some hockey stuff up for his midweek notebook. Lots of good stuff coming on in Eagle Insider. And tomorrow I'll be back with more discussion about the football team and all sorts of good stuff. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, and follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. For Mitch, this is AJ. We'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.